guys in the dark.
This past year in college, we had a ghost named Gideon living in our dorm who has been following my roommate from place to place, or so he claims. He had dubbed this ghost Gideon. He would hear his name, claim that his bed was being shaken in the middle of the night, things like that. He wasn't the only one to experience it, though. As the school year went on, Gideon began to get comfortable with all of us. Activity became frequent. When alone, I've heard faucets running, so I looked about. I found nobody to be in the dorm apartment. I've heard knocking on my door, and when I opened it up, nobody would be there. When I mean knocking at the door, I mean quick little raps of about 3 or 5 knocks every time I'm alone in the dorm apartment, with my bedroom door closed. Every once in a while, late in the night, I'll hear a loud slap on my door, or on my wall. I have a metal water bottle I keep on the windowsill. One night it sounded as though someone was just picking it up and setting it down softly. Just enough so that the metallic clinking on the still, which happened to be made of concrete or something like that. I once had heard a noise as though something had fallen off of my desk. When I woke up, my chapstick was on the floor right beside my bed, which had originally been standing up in the middle of my desk. I heard it drop to the floor the night before, but my windows were closed and my fan was off, so I don't know how it could have gotten there. Something had also tried unlocking my roommate's door from the outside. He found little scratches from where the door meets the frame, and the catch on the floor that was scratched as well. I had a guest spending the night. They saw some strange shadow moving on the ceiling. We tried to recreate the shadow, but we couldn't. The shades were down, so there wasn't too much light coming in at the moment. My roommate was alone, happened to see somebody out of the corner of his eye walk right past his room. It doesn't sound weird, but the figure was walking towards the wall. That's just windows. And there's nothing there other than a couch. When he left his room to see who it was, there was nobody there, and nobody could have gone anywhere, being that we were on the 5th floor. One afternoon, my other roommate, the one who had brought Gideon with him, of course, saw a shadow figure walk into one of the bathrooms. One night, I had experienced a loud knock on my door. I said, "Yeah." I got up and opened up my door. There was, of course, nobody there. And at the same time as I opened up my door, my roommate across from me opened his door, claiming somebody knocked on his door. He thought that it was me. I happened to think that it was him. We had our doors knocked on at the same exact time. I never felt Gideon was a bad presence. Just kind of there and doing his own thing. There was never anything bad that happened to any of us having him there, other than an eerie feeling being alone in that place, as though you weren't entirely alone, aside from the things moving around and the doors being knocked on. 8th grade English teacher. You know how every kid says to their parents, "My teacher just hates me," when they get a bad mark in school? This actually, I swear to this day, was really true. This teacher really just hated me, and I have no idea why. I wasn't a troublemaker. I didn't talk in class or make smart-ass comments. He just didn't like me for no reason that I'll ever know. Anyways, we had these journals that we had to turn in every week. One week I didn't get mine back. He said that I got no marks for my journal because I didn't turn it in. Except, I know I did. He called me a liar and said that I would have to purchase another journal and just turn in next week's assignment. By the way, we couldn't use regular journals. We had to have these special stupid ones that he insisted on for some reason, because I tried to hand in the next assignment on paper, and he refused to accept it. For a few weeks, I kept asking him to return my journal. He kept telling me that I was a liar, and getting zeros for my journal entries. I was afraid to ask my mom to buy me a new one, because my parents used to be fairly cheap, and I thought I was going to get in shit for supposedly losing it. So one day when my teacher left the classroom to go to the bathroom, in front of the entire class, I marched over to his bag, rifled through it, and found my damn journal. I turned it in the very next week with a journal entry, and he never said a damn word about it. That wasn't the end of it, though. Shortly after, we had an essay assignment. I poured my heart into this one, and on the day that we got our marks on it, he came into class, and then loudly proclaimed in front of everyone, "Another F, Chaos Cat. I don't know how you can turn in work like that to me. You are now failing the class." I was beyond mortified. I literally ran out of class crying. It still upsets me to this very day. college professor, abnormal psychology. Not only was he overly homophobic, but his English was extremely hard to understand. He literally taught straight out of the textbook. Like he would say, let's look at the third paragraph on page 35. His tests had been Xeroxed so many times that they were just covered with little black spots, and you could get the answers from people who already took the class. And he repeated, "Is that so?" so many times that I finally started counting them. 168 in a 3-hour period, by the way. There was a break halfway through the class, and most of the people would just leave, but he either didn't notice or didn't care. At the end of the semester, we received the evaluation forms where we're supposed to provide feedback on the class. Usually people would just go through the motions, but everyone turned it over and then started writing furiously on the back, complaining that this dude should not be teaching anybody. This was back in 1998. Well, guess what? He happens to still be there.
I moved a lot growing up. By the time freshman year of high school came around, I had moved 7 or so more times. So it was about a year and a half into my most recent move. I had found a pretty close group of friends in middle school, and we all went to high school together. I met him through one of those close friends. They were in band together, and even though he almost was 4 years older than us, we welcomed him into our group. Sam was easily twice my size, tall and heavyset, and originally kind of intimidating. Although I was never afraid of large men before him. Lesson learned. I had a kind of bad home life, and I spent as much time as I could at school, sometimes hanging around the school campus until 6 or 7 at night with his friend group. 3 of us lived in the same direction, and we would walk the half-hour trip together until our paths split. One slightly colder evening, Sam offered to walk me home since the others had gone home already. I just thought that he was being a gentleman. He mentioned something from a previous move when he lived in California. He didn't walk a friend home, and something horrible happened. He left it at that, and I let him walk me home. We got a lot closer after that. We bonded over both living in California and exchanged numbers. He would message me late into the night about his depression and self-harm, and I just wanted to help. A few months later, he tried asking me out. It was this big romantic gesture. He learned a Disney song on the ukulele and sang to me in the cafeteria. But I was already dating someone, and when I turned him down, he got angry. A freaky, quiet, twitchy kind of angry. I felt so bad for him. I started seeing him everywhere. We were still friends. We still hung out in groups. But I would pass him on the street walking somewhere, and a few minutes later I'd see that he changed directions and had started to follow me. He would walk me to classes by following me in passing period at a distance. I started to minimize the group time we spent together, and he would follow me even more. I had friends meet me at each class and walk me to the next one because I felt unsafe. He knew where I lived. Then he started to talk. Not to me, but to mutual friends about that one girl in California who he tried to walk home. At first, he just shared my name. Some crazy coincidence. Then she had the same brown curly hair and blue eyes. And every time he rambled about her, she became more and more like me. And then he said what happened. Over literal weeks, this fantasy evolved. They were walking home, and they were jumped by some guy with a knife. It was a robbery gone wrong on her birthday, January 24th, which was my birthday. And she died horribly, and he couldn't react in time. She bled out in his arms. Sarah, who has brown curly hair, blue eyes, my name, my birthday, and sounds just like me, bled out in his arms. Each retelling added more and more detail, and this guy with his sick fantasy about my death would follow me around and knew where I lived. My boyfriend was abusive, mentally and physically, but I stayed as close to him as I could, even whenever I could, because if the worst happened, I knew for sure he would throw a punch. I never felt safe at school, or in our little town walking home from school in the dark. One day he had a breakdown, freaking out, and ran out of the school in a panic. I was sent after him, and I found him curled up on the floor. I got closer. I knew about his anxiety and depression, and my safety aside, I wanted to make sure that he was okay. It was then that he told me his horrifying story that I had been hearing from mutual friends, with added detail. He had been walking home from a concert in California. We passed a dark alley, and a homeless man came out with a rusty knife and asked for anything valuable. I fumbled for my phone. I didn't have anything else on me, and he thought I was calling the cops. He stabbed me once, twice, again and again, and Sam stood there horrified. He saw red and grabbed a broken glass bottle near my body and attacked the homeless man. He killed him with his own knife, told me he killed someone. My stalker had killed someone. It didn't matter how messed up he was anymore. I didn't care if it was a fantasy or real. I didn't care how it would affect his mental health anymore. I wanted to go to the police. I was scared for my life. My friends convinced me to go to the school counselor first. That morning we went and told them everything. The stalking, the stories, how he admitted to murder, and that was the reason they moved to California. How I was afraid for my life and wanted to call the police. The counselor didn't take us seriously. She went to the principal, and the principal, not a mental health expert, called Sam in to talk about the accusations. The principal then informed me that he did not take that Sam had any kind of mental illness, or that I was in any danger, and that was that. I lost faith in adults, gave up on going to the police, stayed with my friend, walking me in between classes, hiding behind my abusive boyfriend, and looking behind me every step of the way, walking home that year. The counselors ended up gaslighting us to the point where this all feels like a fever dream now. And I would think it's made up, or if it weren't for my journal entries recording the events, and my growing panic. And also the similar stories from my friend groups. I'm really hoping that this guy gets the help that he deserves. I really know that he has a mental illness, but nobody is doing anything about this.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.